I started playing video games way back. I mean, in the 70s, we were playing pinball machines. You know, I remember when Asteroids came out. I remember when Pong came out. All those things. So I was always fascinated with those kind of games and things like that, and played them forever and ever. As I got older, I was a plumber for 9 years, 8 9 years, and I had saved up enough money to buy a Commodore 64, and that Commodore 64, I played like Incredible Mission, you know, all kinds of games. And then I started like downloading code and writing BASIC and saving it on cassette tape of all things, which I just thought was hilarious. But I remember when Commodore 64, yeah, Commodore 64 had a dial-up service called Quantum Link, which I believe became AOL, if I remember correctly. I may be wrong on that, but I think they became AOL. But you could go and on the phone call up and download stuff, but it would take forever. Oh my God. You know, I remember and then if anybody picked up the phone or if a phone call came in, it would just disconnect you. You'd have to start all over again. Oh my God, it was terrible. But those were my starts in games, you know, and then I always wished I had an Atari, but I couldn't afford one and things like that. And then I got hurt on the job and had to basically start over. And I have to thank the state of California, because in the 80s, when you were disabled, because I had fallen down a staircase at work, when you're disabled, they put you through a bunch of tests and stuff like that. And I went and did all the tests, and they said, and for the State Department of Rehab, and I don't know if the program still exists, but they said, okay, you should be in computers and art based on your tests. I'm like, okay, but what am I going to do with that? They go, oh, you don't understand. We're going to pay for your college. So the state of California paid for my college, which I thought was awesome. It was tough, don't get me wrong, and the home life was a little bit vicious and stuff like that. But I went back to school and I learned 3D art. You know, they taught 3D on Amigas. So, because that's using a program called Sculpt 4D, and that's where I originally learned 3D art, and took that and worked in a company in Irvine for a little while, and then left that company and then went to Beverly Hills, where I worked in making graphics for television and things like that. So I did like the American Teacher Awards for Disney, and Pair of Jokers, and Comedy Club Network intros for Showtime. Now, when I say I worked on them with many other people, but worked on them, you know, because it wasn't like I did them all by myself. No, there were a lot of people there, a lot of people doing that. And I worked for a company called Slade, and John and Mrs. Slade, who owned the company, were fantastic people and gave me a break and paid me pretty good to come in and learn and do those things. So, and I learned to, I was already editing videotapes at the time, so I learned some editing from them. So I was able to go over to Sunset and Gower in Hollywood and learn how to edit on the Harry and the Quantel paint box and all that kind of stuff, which was a lot of fun because we were going from D1 videotape, because there was no digital there. It was just D1 tape, which was sort of like Betamax, but a higher quality, because you do all your graphics on D1 tape, and then they transfer it and put alphas on it in the Harry, and then that would then go to the production companies. It was a lot of fun. One of the cool things about that time, though, is I met, when I was looking for a job before I found Slade, I met Mr. Sinclair, who owned the Cray computer that did all the graphics for Last Starfighter. So I actually got to stand in the room with this massive computer that it had all the stuff, and it's literally as big as a room. And at the very end was either a 35 or a 70 millimeter camera that they would shoot each frame out to in 3-color wheel and that's how they did all the graphics for Last Starfighter, all the ships and all that stuff. And it was really cool. And I'm just like in nerd heaven at the time. So I think I'm going to need my first cough drop. I know I put them here. I'm starting to talk fast again. But yeah, so God, I lost the original question. Let's see where we're at. So I also had applied at one point to CinemaWare, which was doing a lot of adventure games and stuff like that, but they turned me down. I think they were more concerned about the drive from northern LA to Orange County every day. That would have been murder based on traffic. But I'd always been interested in some kind of gaming or stuff like that. Just didn't know how to get into it. And the way I got into Silicon and Synapse was that my wife, Thor's mom, was not happy about the fact that in order to work in Beverly Hills, I had to leave at 6 o'clock in the morning and come home at midnight because of traffic and other concerns. And so she said, find something closer. So I started applying for places in Orange County. And that's how I met Mike and Alan and Frank. And they needed someone to come in and build the cars for rock and roll racing. So I came in and interviewed, and I put on, not knowing anything about the actual game industry, I put on a suit and showed up in a suit, which Alan has made fun of me for forever. Because he said, I remember him saying that he said to Mike later that day, which is actually true. He said, that person has never worn a suit in his life. And he was right. But I didn't know, for a game company, I didn't know how to show up to apply for it. I just didn't know. So I was dumb, but it was funny. And I know that Alan got some great laughs out of it. And just so you know, it was a terrible suit. It was literally what I think I got at a thrift store at one point because I needed a suit for something. It was not like, oh my God, look at that amazing suit. So I interviewed, I believe it was in February. And then in September, they called me and said, okay, we're ready to hire you now. I'm like, okay. So I was working at Mr. Film in Venice Beach at the time. So, because I didn't know I was ever going to hear from them. And they hired me on a 5-week contract to come in and build the cars for rock and roll racing, which I came in and they set me up with a computer. I was building the cars and, and doing other work, and just, that's how I got into it. That's where my roots are.